Hi, everybody. Matt Lawton here, and this is the Astrological Winds channel. I'm going to take a look this week at the monthly astrological weather report for December, and I'll also take a look at the week of December 2nd through the 8th. So remember, with the monthly, I just kind of look at the outers, the outer planet, the longer brush stroke of what's going on, and then we'll look at the weekly. And in the weekly, you got a lot going on with Venus getting towards the end of Capricorn, hitting Uranus, Neptune, Ceres, and Pluto, and going into Aquarius. And then the Sun and Mercury make their inferior conjunction, which I have up here on the board, with a mutable T-square with Jupiter and Saturn. And then we also have Mars going retrograde, joining Mercury retrograde next Saturday, and Neptune going direct. So a lot of stuff going on this week. A few things I want to mention in the month also. And just really quick, the Astrological Winds channel is a video blog. I do it on YouTube. If you have a YouTube account, please become a follower, turn on your notifications. It's also available on podcast still. Just look up Astrological Winds channel. You'll find it out there. If you don't find it on one, look at it at another. Has its own Instagram page. So if you become a follower there, the link can come up in your newsreel there. And always can find all the blogs, even ones from the past several months, on my website, www.astrologicalwinds.com. That also has the menu for all my professional services. I've been a professional astrologer for over 20 years, was trained formally for 7 years before that. Would love to do your chart, or if you have a group or if you're a student, I have all kinds of services. Take a look there. The menu is there. If you're a professional and you're looking for more detailed services like weekly or daily or monthly, please get in touch with me either on the website. There's my email too, matthe823@gmail.com. Now, the blog is a free service, so what I ask in return is that you send the link on to somebody else. I'd really appreciate that. And if you'd like to give a monetary donation to the blog, there's my Venmo and Cash Apps right there. No amount is too small. Really appreciate anybody who gives. Now, let's get into this first for December. There's a few things I wanted to mention in December, and the first is Mars is going to go retrograde on the 6th. And I'm going to actually talk about that in the weekly. So I'm going to kind of skip through that right now. Now, on the 7th, Neptune goes direct, and it's just about back at 27 degrees of Pisces. Now, it's been in Pisces for a long time, right? 10, between many years, over 10 years, close to 20 years. But point is, it's getting near the end of Pisces. This is going to be, when it goes direct, it's going to be one of the last times that it's in Pisces, and it will stay in Pisces until next July, when it will actually go, or until next March. I'm sorry, on March 30th is when it will go into Aries. And so the last 3 degrees of a sign are what are considered critical degrees. And that really means, more than anything to me, if you want to put it in a nutshell, is, did we learn the lessons that sign, as it went through, as that planet, as it went through that sign? Did we learn the lessons of that flavor of the planet while it was going through that sign? And the Neptune in Pisces period has really represented a lot of stuff. Neptune has a lot to do with like spirituality, belief systems, ideals, very abstract things mainly. And if you think about the last 10, 20 years, there's really been, like, that's happened on a broad front. Neptune being one of the outer planets, most of its effect we see through the collective, through society, through all of us together. And we can look back at the last 10, 20 years, and while Neptune's been in Pisces, and be like, there has been like a lot of spiritual revolution that's gone on, despite a lot of the political um, you know, separation, underlying things, there seems to be a unifying spiritual movement going on also simultaneously. And also, when you think about even the separation politically, it has to do with different belief systems. It has to do with the way people even approach religion and morals and things like that. And Pisces is a sign, as I've said many times before, that's dualistic, that does not see the unity, that where the fish are tied by the tails at the bottom, swimming away from one another, And so that's one of the things that Neptune in Pisces is trying on this other level to remind us that no matter how different we are from one another, we're still unified underneath. Even the people you don't like, even the people you may hate, even the people that you completely disagree with politically or socially in the way they're approaching, we are still unified all together collectively under this. So I think we've seen this Neptune and Pisces really operate like that, and make two belief systems that people have fully submerged themselves into, have become at one with, and has really created underneath a lot of the political and social discourse a very spiritual movement behind a lot of the things. So when this goes direct until March 30th, this is like a subtle shift. It's not like Mercury retrograde or Mars retrograde where it really is affecting our everyday individual life. This is more about, are we finally ready to take those beliefs and take them to another level, to bring things together? Hopefully that's the highest ideal of Neptune and Pisces. They're very similar energies, and they want people to see that unification. They want to dissolve the boundaries between things. So this, over these next 4 months, is our last, really one of our last chances to see that before Neptune goes into Aries and really changes its flavor and can actually become much more aggressive about pushing the beliefs then. Now, it will actually go retrograde. I think it's next July 30th. I'm not sure if I wrote this down in my notes here. I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, I think it's on the 30th when it's in July. And then it'll be up to a couple degrees of Aries, and then it will slide back when it's retrograde next year for a little while into the end of Pisces again. So we will get that one last chance. But that's really, on an individual level of the next few months, just think about that. Like, how well have you integrated your belief system, what you value, into, your reality? And is it coming from this unifying place that Neptune and Pisces ultimately is trying to teach all of us? Now, on the 14th of December, that's when Mercury will go direct. So that, it'll be, it's still in Sagittarius. It's going to stay in Sagittarius the whole time. And next year, it will also stay in fire signs for the most part while it's doing its 3 retrograde motions. So that's, until then, all that stuff that I talked about with Mercury retrograde last week is going to continue. And then remember, when it hits that last direct hit to it, it's still very intense, and it takes a couple weeks for it to dissipate after that. Now, the one transit this month that's a long-term transit, and I talked about it a little bit already last month, is Jupiter is sesquiquadrate Pluto. Okay, and that's on December 17th. This is the second hit. And this has a lot to do with how we're using our power, and feeling like it can be being frustrated and blocked right now, like that there's authorities or those who have even more power than us, or rules, or just the world that is blocking a lot of our ability to use our power the way we want. Now, we can also be very, like, coming up against people who are already in power, and they have so much power that they're the ones causing a lot of the blockages and everything. This really works out a lot on the societal level. It's people trying to control things. Once again, Pluto, because of the values and beliefs they have, Jupiter and trying to kind of almost like make them the law, and then finding out it doesn't work that easily. That, what, when you push your power, you're going to end up getting into like power struggles, especially with people who already have some kind of authority or power in many situations. Now, one of the good ways to use this energy is reforming things. And once again, Jupiter can have a lot to do with abstractions, and even Pluto can. It can look at things on a deep level and be like, what is really like, needs reformation within society or within what we're doing, the belief systems we have? What needs some way of having something to be rebuilt, reformed into something else that's working better? Because right now things seem to be very blocked, and a lot of people trying to push what they want to do are finding out, that they're not able to do it on the level that they thought they'd be able to do it. So, it really, really have to look at what we believe in and whether, those thoughts are really valid. That's part of this slowing down process. And if we're using it too much for our own benefit or just for the benefit of a small amount of people, it's really going to mess with us. And it's going to find out that like a lot of things are going to go wrong, and, that you may lose basically. And, a lot of times this has to do, sometimes on a personal level, this can have to do with legal things like that too, and not getting the rulings that we want to get. So, and then the last thing I want to mention for the month is on December 29th, Chiron in Aries still will also go direct, just like, and it will be at 19 degrees Aries. It will get to 27 degrees Aries next July before it turns retrograde again. So Chiron will continue to stay in Aries. And I've said this for several years now while Chiron's been in Aries. This is a time when we're having to take our own responsibility for our own healing and learning. So when it goes direct, it means it's really time to do that, to get out there and make active moves that are helping you on your healing journey, on your learning journey, on making life better for yourself. And we have to do this ourselves. So that is another subtle shift that's going on. Like the Neptune direct, it's not like Mercury and Mars changing directions. It's not as much in our face. It's more of a background thing where we'll see, we're going to have to do things on our own if we want to make progress on those levels. So, okay. And so let's get to the week now. And, there's really three main things I want to talk about this week: Venus's journey, the sun and Mercury's inferior conjunction locking into a mutable T-square with Jupiter in Gemini, and then Mars going retrograde. Those are the three main things I want to talk about. So once again, a planet, an inner planet, getting near the end of its sign, Venus in Capricorn, getting near the end of its sign. And today, on Monday, it will trine Uranus, which is still retrograde in Taurus. And so that's going to be the first thing. And so when Venus trines Uranus, we're looking for something new to do. We're looking to have some kind of new experience. And we really like to do it with different people than we normally hang out with. In fact, we'll actually be attracted to different people. And the more different they are from us in background, and the way they were brought up, culture, race, things like that, the more interesting they are to us, the more intriguing they are to us. So that's how we get a lot of new stimulation and excitement in our life, is through relationships with the Venus Uranus trine, and especially newer relationships that are sparking up. Now, a lot of times with connections with Venus and Uranus, they're very short term. Like it may be just like you meeting someone and having some valuable piece of information for you for where you're at. Now, if it's a romantic thing, many times it will be also a short-term connection too. It won't be a long-term stable relationship, but many times we're attracted to people who are very different from us. They're very intriguing. And many times people also with Venus and Uranus together in romantic situations will have an alternative way of doing relationships. It won't be the societal standard way. There may be some kind of unique flavor to that. Now, this is also a time where we can also get into new forms of art and get very productive in our flow of putting it out, or get inspired by new forms of art. They open up new ways of looking at things, okay? And then also, this can bring good financial opportunities in unique places. Look for investing in places that are unique, that are not the standard or norm. There may be a really good flow going on with that right now, too. So, so this is, really interesting energy to get the week started. It really makes it an exciting kind of week. And then by Wednesday, Venus will hit Neptune with a sextile, a beautiful, beautiful aspect. Just one of the sweetest aspects, you guys. Like, Venus and Neptune are both about love, right? And Venus is about what I call, or, Buddhists would call conditional love, or what we call human love, our love for each other in our relationships between people. And Neptune is all about higher love, unconditional love, spiritual love. So when they come together in a sextile that's a harmonious aspect, it brings an opportunity to blend the two of them together. And what we get out of that is very inspiring connections with others. They can feel like soulmate connections. It doesn't necessarily have to be romantic, too. I mean, if it is, it's beautiful, because you realize you've connected with someone who has a lot of the same ideals as you. And there's this really sweet flow, a blending of energy, a dissolving of boundaries, where your energies can become at one, can become in unison with one another. But even if it's not romantic, there's this compassion and empathy that we project towards one another. We want to help each other out. We want to give opportunities to each other. And once again, this can get us very inspired artistically. Neptune and Venus together can bring a lot of inspiration and imagination and get the artistic juices flowing. And once again, too, like, this can also bring us into like spiritual journeys, like finding spiritual groups of people that we relate really well to. So that is another beautiful, beautiful aspect. And another thing about that too, you can use that creative energy for like beautifying your surroundings, or exposing yourself to beautiful surroundings. So that can be like nature many times with Venus, Neptune, or art, going out and experiencing or seeing some art if you're not actually producing some. So another really beautiful Venus connection Monday and Wednesday. And then even Thursday, there's this beautiful conjunction of Venus and Ceres, the asteroid Ceres, which is one of those main four asteroids, the mothering asteroid, the energy of wanting to take care of others, really wanting to take care of our loved ones, having a very sensitive nature and action and reaction towards our loved ones. And it really can sweeten relationships up, can feel very, very supported and supportive of one another. And then on Friday is when Venus goes into Aquarius. So gonna leave Capricorn and go into Aquarius. And when Venus goes into Aquarius, she is very outgoing. She really wants to connect with lots of people. It's like really, and that connection is mainly on the intellectual level, on the idea level, on the ideals level. Get very inspired by hanging out with people that you are subcultured with or subgrouped with, and you can be very popular within that. Like, there's a lot of enthusiastic energy that comes out from Venus and Aquarius, but she is very freedom loving. So she not only wants freedom for herself, but she also wants freedom for everybody else too. And so the thing that Venus in Aquarius doesn't like is deep emotional stuff. That she considers something that slows her down, and she will go away from that. Now, it's funny, it's in a fixed sign, but Aquarius is a lot like Venus trine Uranus. It wants to be able to experience relationships in all kinds of forms, not just the normal societal way. So once again, it like the connections we may have romantically when Venus is in Aquarius is with very different people who intrigue us because of their differences. And many times that's coming from the intellect. We connect in the mind. It's not a deep emotional connection necessarily. We're firing up on the mind. In fact, we may run away from emotional connection. And once again, with art and creativity, this is a great period when Venus is in Aquarius to use media and technology for art. To use those things as tools in your art or create art with technology and media. It's a ripe time for that. Also, once again, investing in things that seem to be alternative, just like the Venus Uranus trine again. Those things seem to be things that may be the good investments now, things that are not your normal investing scheme. So really interesting energy. I'll be like 3 or 4 weeks there. And then as soon as Venus goes into Aquarius, what went into Aquarius last month? Pluto, right? So it's going to conjunct Pluto right away. And this can go two ways. This is very different than Venus and Aquarius, actually, and will challenge that Venus and Aquarius desire for freedom, because what Venus and Pluto wants is deeper relationships that are emotional, that are passionate, that are intense. You will dive down with me. So it will actually start to eliminate a lot of the superficial relationships and hone in on just a few or even a singular one. If it's a romantic one, this is when lovers can get very deep, where the emotional unity like breaks down barriers between them, and the soul union once again can come together. It can feed the Venus Neptune of the soulmate connection and like bearing our souls wide open to each other and showing us each other all the passion within us and all the emotions. Now, the bad thing about this is if it goes the other way, especially in relationships that you may have been in for a long time that are struggling, you have to be very careful about getting into control and power trip stuff with Venus conjunct Pluto and trying to control the other. Okay. But once again, this can get us really deeply into art too. Alternative art that moves us, exposing ourselves to some kind of art that literally gets the emotions where you're feeling it inside, and or we're creating on this very intense level of just like, wow, it's coming out like a quasar exploding out into space with this just new, vibrant energy, dynamic energy. And then also, once again, this can be one of these harbingers of a really good financial gain, like big, or a big financial loss if we're not careful. So, like, some really interesting journey for Venus this week. Now, the second thing I want to talk about this week, and it's going to be in fact from Wednesday through Saturday, basically, is this mutable T-square among the Sun conjunct Mercury retrograde at 14 degrees Sag. That's the inferior conjunction, okay? The middle conjunction. And that is opposite Jupiter, and both of them square Saturn, right? So that's where our T-square is. So the Sun and Mercury with their inferior conjunction, that's the second conjunction when they're crossing each other during Mercury retrogrades period every 4 months. And so the inferior conjunction is literally the middle point of the Mercury retrograde period. And for me, I've always noticed that's when people are the most interiorized. Even if they're still talking, the amount of talk on the inside is 10 times more at least than what's going on the outside. So there's a lot of processing going on. And when the Sun and Mercury are normally together, it's a great time for new beginnings, pushing out things, getting your word out. But when it's the inferior conjunction, those new beginnings are internal. Okay. Just getting some new ideas about the way you're seeing things and literally making the first changes or planting the first seeds almost really on what I call the ideational level, right? And when Mercury and the Sun are together, we're all very subjective with our life experience. So when it's the Mercury retrograde one, it's even more so. And that's why the communication can be so difficult too, because we're all so wrapped up internally in where we're at and our thoughts and what we're chewing that we're just not listening good, and we're really not even communicating well what we're feeling yet, because we're still kind of like filtering it through, is a good way to say it. And a lot of this, once again, it has to do with some of the things I've been talking about the last week or two. The opposition to Jupiter shows we have a grand vision, and a lot of it may have to do with other people and relationships even, and what they're bringing to that. And that can be very enthusiastic, very firing up, but it also has a tendency to forget the details, right? And that's where the Saturn can help. But like I said last week, when Saturn's in Pisces, we have to be careful, because that can give us a big blind infatuation spot with some beliefs and X out everything else. So, even though there's this grounding energy, it can feed the going too far and not looking at the details. So we want to bring the Saturn, we want Saturn and Jupiter to work together, just like I talked about last week with the new moon T-square. We want to go step by step. Jupiter is the vision. Saturn is the way we implement that vision, right? Concrete and abstraction. And the square is requiring us to take a solid step, making sure the ground beneath us is solid, putting both feet on that ground. Now we're ready for the next step. That's what this wants us to do. And right now, that step is reassessing, reviewing all these things, all these ideas of the last 3 months that we got with these grander visions, and how are we going to get them into reality, right? So this is like a really big energy this week, and that's why I put it on the board. I want everybody to be able to see that. So that is one of the big energies. And then the last thing I really want to mention for this week is Mars going retrograde. Okay, so 3 inner planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And whenever 2 of them are retrograde at the same time, when one of them is retrograde, like Mercury, that can be like, struggle. It can be tough. Like I said last week, our normal things aren't working normally. And so when 2 of them go retrograde at the same time, it can really exponentiate those issues. And Mars is all about our actions, right? And it's going to go retrograde on Saturday at about 6 degrees of Leo. So that's where it'll start, but it's going to stay retrograde. When Mars goes retrograde, it's not like Mercury, 3 weeks. No, it's more than 2 months. It will be until February 23rd, I believe, you guys. So, like, we've got a long way. Yes, February 23rd, and it's going to backtrack all the way to 17 degrees of Cancer. So, if you remember, Mars just got out of Cancer a couple weeks ago, and I said that is one of the 3 weakest signs that Mars is in. It is a sign, what we call fall. It does not like to be there. It can't function. So now it's going to be retrograde in Cancer through most of this. I really think what's going to happen here, guys, is the Mars Leo is part of this whole situation. The Mars Leo is us individually feeling so confident and strong about what we believe in, what we're trying to push our actions and stuff, that we get pompous, that we get arrogant, that we get self-righteous. And when we do that, we have a tendency to ignore facts, to overlook details, right? Same thing again. That's exactly what I think we're going to see happening here with this Mars going into Leo. Like, a lot of people having a lot of big ideas, thinking a lot of changes are coming, and then all of a sudden realizing, whoa, like, the world is not prepared for this, or I'm not prepared for this. Mars going backwards like that can be like the emperor wears no clothes. You can be caught looking unprepared, like a hypocrite, like, someone who's just drunk with their own power and just doing things like without like being able to explain besides some personal reason why they're doing it, and it obviously is not working right. And then it'll go back into Cancer, and that's when all the emotional debris of the results of that will start to roost and come home. And then all of a sudden it will feel like, oh, like maybe I don't have nearly as much as I thought. And we start to circle the wagons. We're starting to tighten the ship. You know, the thing is, and I said this with Mars and Cancer last month, the month before, when Mars wants to act, right? And it doesn't want interference, especially from emotions. But Mars in Cancer is all about emotions. And when we're feeling good, we act. We're enthusiastic. We go for it. We keep a positive vibe. But when we're not feeling good, when Mars is in Cancer, we shut down. And that's where inactivity can come in. We will literally shut down to the point of inactivity where we don't do. We just like, it can be like a depression of like almost like not getting out of bed. But the other thing we do is we get very protective about what we have and what our loved ones have. We kind of circle the wagons, you know, and it can be a hard time because things aren't working the way they normally work. So we can get very, very much like, okay, you know, I'm, you know, not going to allow others in. I'm going to get very defensive. And we can see this in the United States right now as a country, right? Like really taking this turn towards not wanting to deal with the world's problems so much. But yet there's this division within the United States and a lot of emotional stuff going on in the United States where half the country feels like, you know, they don't want to do anything. And the other half of the country is like pushing so hard, but they're not really looking at a lot of the details. So we can see how this Mars retrograde is even playing out in society. But, you know, on an individual level, that's the same thing. Like if our actions for trying to support ourselves and our loved ones keep falling short, keep missing the mark because of the way things are, it can get us really down. It can get us like where we inactivate, where we get passive, where we circle the wagons, where we get protective, where we get defensive. So we have to really, you know, make sure that, you know, like basically we don't fall into an emotional quicksand that just like we can't get out of. Like no matter what move we make, we're sinking further and further down. So that, you know, and you know, the other thing about Mars too, remember Mars has to do a lot with, you know, the emotion of anger. And when it's in Cancer, it has a tendency to hold that in, and it can really brood, and that can actually shut down a lot of the actions that you normally take too. So you can see, you know, that the holding in the anger, it can be part of the reason that things slow down, and then part of the reason why you can explode at times, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, you're just your own worst enemy to what you're trying to get done, because then you got like a whole mess to clean up after that. So very, very interesting. You know, the other thing with Mars and Cancer on a personal level is we can have a lot of issues with our family. Like there can be a lot of energy tied around our family and home, and there can be a lot of issues that come up. You can get actually very angry at your family for some of the stuff that's going on, or there can be issues around your home that you need to deal with. So, and then remember the other last thing this week is on Saturday, Neptune goes direct, which I talked about right at the beginning with the monthly. So very interesting week, you guys. Like Venus having a real fun, interesting journey. And then once again, the Sun and Mercury saying, hey, you better take care of the details, or this Mars retrograde for the next 2 or 3 months is going to slow down everything you do so much that you will be really upset. You will be angry. You will feel insecure. And remember, like I said, the last chance to work with that Neptune and Pisces really and try to get our ideals into the real world. All right, you guys, that's what I got for this week. This is Matt Lawton. This is the Astrological Winds channel. I am a professional astrologer. I've been doing charts for over 20 years. I had 7 years of training. I would really like you to pass the link on to somebody else, and I'd really like you to check the website out if you need any kind of service, or you know anyone that needs any kind of service. I do all kinds of readings. Read through the descriptions. And if you need to work with me with the finances, we can do that. We'll work with that. Like I said, if you're a professional and you're looking for more details, I can work very intimately with you on any planning, projects, business, your personal life, whatever it may be, for daily, weekly, and monthly readings. Get in touch with me. There's my email, matthue823@gmail.com. Also, have a couple people that really want to get into classes. If you guys, anybody else is interested in that, let me know. I'm going to probably start something up with them. Tutoring is available too, even. And then, like, if you have a group and you want a lecture or workshop, something like that, get in touch with me. All that stuff is available. And if you'd like to give a donation to the blog, my Venmo handle at Matthew-Lawton, Lauten, Cash App, $ Matthew Lawton. And every little bit helps. It does cost me a little money to put the blog out. All right. I appreciate all you guys. We're going to have a little bit of a tough period for sure, especially with the overlap of these two inner planets retrograde until mid-December, and then Mars is going to keep activity pretty slow and quiet for a couple months. There's going to be probably quite a bit of an adjustment period in the world, filtering down to our individual lives for the next 2 or 3 months. And in the United States, that's already starting to happen because of the change of administration. So, a lot of things may slow down or even come to a stop for a while a lot of these changes are happening. All right. I will see you all next week. We have got a full moon at 24 degrees of Gemini next week to talk about. So that will be one of the main things I'll be talking about next week. And then remember, Mercury right at the end of the week will go direct. All right. I will see you all next week. Thank you so much. Please pass the blog along.